we up to today? Well, I'm going to do another B-roll video, if you guys aren't already sick of these. Why am I doing B-roll video? Well, with the 7-day lockdown, it kind of threw my filming schedule out, and I'm block to block with medical appointments, so I'm only getting a couple of hours of a night time to sort of look at this YouTube channel. So tonight, what we're doing with the B-roll is we're digging up some old stuff. Let's have a look here. I'm looking at it from back at about 2011. I was doing a little bit of prototype work for a company called, what is it? I have to look it up now. I think it was Warbirds Down Under. They're not operational anymore. And I think the people that previously operated it, they run a flight training school, and they've relocated to Mount Gambier, I think. Anyway, the filming I did on this was really on the budget side, and in 2011, unless you spent big bucks, like GoPros weren't really up to speed yet, and 4K wasn't really a thing all that much either. So this is some pretty B-grade video, but hopefully I can walk you through some of this. And we're going to jump from this, which is 4K, and I think I've got it set to 60 frames here. We're going to jump to some really low-res stuff by comparison. But you know what? I might even be able to put some of that in the smaller screen down here somewhere, and sort of just talk you through some of the video so that it's not so jarring to the eye. So I'm going to dig up some video, and then as soon as I've done that, we'll cut this little segment here straight to that video, and I'll just walk you through some stuff. Hopefully we can come up with an interesting video. Alright, so it begins. So I've got my bottle of water here, so I'm going to drink midway through the narration of this. We're going to start you off with just some images of the actual aircraft. This is a CJ-6A Nanchang, and it's pretty well a Chinese copy of a Yak, a Yak 9. It's got variable pitch props on it, and basically you vary your speed by varying your prop pitch. So you pretty well set your engine at a solid pace. It does make the sounds of flight pretty boring. So this is an overhead cabin view. That's the pilot's cabin in there, and an extra little screen there that was viewfinder for the cameras. The camera system I built for this was done on a pretty serious budget, so it's not something I'm terribly proud of. But anyway, this is the pilot here, the grey-haired bloke. He goes by the name Snoopy. You'll see two different pilots here. This gives you a bit of an idea of what it's like in the rear seat. These are the areas I've got to keep my feet away from. That's the rudder controls and the control stick, of course. As a passenger, you don't touch any of that. And we wound them all the way back to the minimum setting, so that my big clodhoppers didn't get in the way and cause us some trouble. This is having a quick look out over the wings with the airspeed sensor there, on the way to takeoff. This is a bit of a hodgepodge of clips. You'll see two different pilots. One's a RAF pilot that took me for one little trip, and Snoopy's done some of the other aerobatics, like the loop and the hard banking turns you'll see soon later in the video. This is our RAF pilot here. This is on a different session. This is we were preparing to do a display over our local horse racing club when they do a bit like a Melbourne Cup day. They have a local cup, so we were, I think, chartered at that point to go and do a flyover. This is me just checking the dials and stuff. Basically, these things you've got to sit and let them idle till the oil temp comes up to operational temperature. And then, of course, you can take off, which is this little clip here. So we're getting airborne here. At the point that this clip has been taken, I've actually done a bit of flying with these guys already. So I'm fairly comfortable with what we're doing. Later on in the clip, there is an earlier one, which is the first time I'd ever actually been inverted in an aircraft. And it was a 1G maneuver, but it's still, I held on to the dash. You'll see that later on. So this is just sort of, in this little clip here, we're just sort of checking where we are. Doing a visual check, just checking the control surfaces and stuff like that. I think there was a, yeah, it's I think the RAF pilot, he hadn't done too many hours in the Nanchang at that point too, so he was still sort of getting the feel of it a little bit, and just getting the idea of smooth banks and stuff like that. That was part of what this flight was about. Now, most of this clip don't have audio, this one does.
Oh, yep, got it. Okay, we're recording. Cool.
So here we're just doing a bit of a check, checking cameras and stuff.
Let me know when you want to switch cameras or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, no, it's all good for the moment. I just want to make sure it's actually going to do the
Yep,
job.
and now I think at this point we're about to check the we're about to check the smoke system.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's in the next clip. I had
I might switch over to the wing check camera and get a bit of footage.
yeah, I'm pausing in between when I'm speaking in this clip, just so that you guys can hear it. Now we did a bit of a banking turn here. They had a canola oil system in this thing, so that you can pump a bit of canola oil into the exhaust to create like sort of cinematic smoke effects, if you will, or chemtrails if you're that kind of a person. But not much that canola oil buddy smoke is going to do in comparison to some of the claims that are made with that.
Alright, we'll go back to the rear camera.
Radio.
I just want to see if we can get some smoke coming out the back.
Radio.
Now, I won't do it for very long, because I think there's a few abnormalities with it, but ready to go?
Yep.
Okay.
Now the bit that I have my left hand on there is actually the locking lug for the canopy. Probably not the most sensible place to have had my hand, but I was just resting my hand there, not putting any force on it. But we're doing some banking turns here to try and see if we're getting some smoke coming out.
Nothing happening.
This is a sunflower system, isn't it?
What's that?
Here's sunflower oil.
Sorry?
They're using sunflower oil, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's been sitting for a while, it's clogged up.
Righto. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, now at the time what we discovered is there's a valve underneath that we'd actually left switched off. This is just a bit of radio chatter with the control tower, which is actually a RAF base at this point. We're in controlled airspace at that point. So now during preparations for a promotional video, we did a bit of chase plane stuff. We got into another aircraft and followed the Nanchang, so this is where this stuff comes from. And with all the camera gear I had at the time, I used the best that I could afford, which wasn't great, but we got some interesting shots, but it was also lumpy. This first video, it was pretty lumpy air that day, so it was pretty hard to try and get a steady shot. And I hadn't really sort of discovered steady cams, and software stabilization wasn't really a thing, at least not in the hardware I had. And so we can see here we're flying pretty well. I think the RAF pilot is on board, and a good friend of mine, Joe, is actually behind the sticks on this one. Would certainly trust my life to her in an aircraft. An excellent pilot. Here we go. This is where we had the smoke system actually working for this one. This is sort of the best camera view I had. We sort of did a wing tilt to try and follow it down a little bit there. But yeah, this is probably the best of the cameras that I had for doing this. I checked through a lot of other footage and I didn't have anything really that great. Here we go, smoke's back on again on the opposite wing. And you can see the some big pistons in that. It's a 9-cylinder radial, and you can see the compression from each exhaust cycle coming out of that in the pulses of the exhaust smoke. Actually, quite scarily in that, there is a bit of a leak in the oil cooler, a bit of a gap there. So when you're running that smoke, it actually does fill the cabin up with the canola smoke too, and it sneaks its way into the cabin behind the rear console. It's actually pretty terrifying if you've ever been in an aircraft and it's had an electrical failure that's caused some sort of a fire. It's okay if you kind of know what you're looking for, and I'd been warned about that at the time, but it doesn't make you any less comfortable about the scenario. So yeah, trying a long zoom here. We actually had got quite a bit higher here. We've got some good steady views of it. So now this is where my late brother makes a bit of an appearance. Every time I'm doing these archival videos, I find my brother. Now this is, we'd parked to do a system check. My brother was just sort of helping me to calibrate the cameras a bit here. This is my late brother here. He sadly took his own life about 5 or 6 years ago. There's a documentary on that on my channel called Be a Man, so go and dig that one up if you're interested in some of the history behind that. But yeah, we're basically here trying to get everything calibrated. This is our nose camera. We wanted to sort of know where the field of view is, so I'm hanging my hands around the front there, checking the auto EV on it, and I think my brother pops in from the left here just to try and see exactly what area we can see. So we wanted to make sure we got the full radius of the prop and a little bit below the nose, partly so that we could see landing stuff. So now we're onto the aerobatic side of things. Now this is fun. So this is getting back in after these system checks, and yeah, greasy, dirty, oily pants. That these are not really civilian posh aircraft. There's lots of oil and grease on things, so a choice of white pants was bad, and knocking my camera off the stand was also another bad choice. So yeah, basically all the usual stuff, just getting everything checked here. And yeah, this is at a civilian airfield. During this run, we'd actually gone to, we'd done a bit of a flight and also dropped off some supplies, and picked up an aircraft part, I think, which is hiding behind me. And see, the whole aircraft responds to the torque of starting up that engine too. And you'll also notice when you're riding around with a canopy, you see in these movies, people getting around with a canopy up on aircraft. And you know, they've got, this is why they have long sleeve shirts, but you know, they all look right as rain, whereas there's an unwholesome amount of wind, probably because, you know, you're generating enough thrust to shift the entire aircraft. But at the same time, it's a pretty liberating feeling, as you can probably see in my face in this video. Now, a lot of these clips actually don't have audio too, so that's kind of why I'm narrating most of this for you. I think I need a bit more water here. It's when you set yourself a goal of talking for nearly half an hour straight. So yeah, here we're just we're taxiing up the runway here. The engine's already still pretty warm, but we're just checking oil temps and stuff like that. And I've got a bunch of little camera monitors and stuff in front of me as well, for the gear that we'd sort of like stuck on a Velcro tape for this particular flight. And so we're just, yeah, sitting in the taxiway waiting for oil temp, and I think, I don't recall exactly, but usually on that particular airfield you're waiting for somebody else to taxi. It's a bit busier than the more rural airfield that we deal with, but we're also, at this point, we're on the fringes of military controlled airspace. So that looks like, yeah, we're onto the actual runway there, so it's time to put the canopy up. And which, I've got to say, I'm not made to be aircrew. I'm a bit too big and a bit too tall, so I had to really hunch down for these things. So yeah, especially when you get sort of Chinese copies of aircraft, they're not really made for Westerners, I guess. But yeah, this will give you an idea of the short takeoff of this thing. It's got a takeoff probably not all that much longer from like a Piper Cub or something like that. It doesn't take very much at all. Lots of torque, fairly light aircraft. Get you off the ground pretty quick. That being said, I've seen Piper Cubs take off in like 0 speed. They got a little bit of headwind, and they just bring it up and bring the props up and lift it up off the ground in the middle of a river in the middle of Canada. So yeah, they can do some crazy stuff. Now I'm going to cut to this is Snoopy flying here. I'm going to cut back to the RAF pilot who sadly whose name or handle I don't recall. It was such a long time ago. So we're going to switch here. This is a different clip. This is doing some circuits, hard banking turns around the race course during Cup Day. And I think this is a different year even as well. But now there's a little maneuver here. He did a bit of a wing wave, and I smacked my head on the canopy in one of these maneuvers. Take a bit of a hard bank turn. We only had the camera on the right hand wing at this stage. But yeah, doing some hard banks. I think this might have been probably the last pass we did that day, and as he's leveled out, he's done a wing wave right about here. You'll go bam bam bam, and I wasn't prepared for that, and he hadn't given me any warning he was going to do that. So yeah, I had a bit of a sore head after that one, but it's all good. Now we're back with Snoopy again. This is a different clip. This is coming after the runway that we took off from, which is ironically now quite close to the museum. There's actually going to be an air show there in the near future. We'll end up doing a bit of an episode on that too. It'll be sort of all my interests mashed into one here. That's the local prison too. We thought we'd give the prisoners a little bit of a show. We did some aerobatics over the top of that later that day, and hopefully give them a bit of something to look forward to when they eventually get out, I guess. Now, this is where we get into the interesting stuff, and we're getting towards the end of the video a bit here. So I'm going to take another sip of water. And see where we go from there. So this particular set of maneuvers required a bit more height, so we got up into the clouds a bit here. Now, at this point, you'll see fairly soon I'll stick my hand on the dash there. This is getting up to the point, the first time I'd ever been inverted in an aircraft, and it's also at this point in time I hadn't been in an aircraft for about 5 or 6 years, so it was, yeah, I had to sort of recalibrate my brain a little bit to some of this stuff. So yeah, somewhere about here you'll see me, he's given me a bit of warning about what he plans to do. So I'm just sort of trying to brace my camera, get a good spot. But you know, Snoopy being the expert pilot he is, he's really good at pulling off 1G maneuvers. So as you go over like this, there actually really wasn't any sort of major force on me. There wasn't any sort of positive or negative G's. It was about pretty neutral. It was pretty easy to hold the camera. But I still needed that reassurance of holding on to the dash. You know, I might have done a lot of things and been experienced, but you know, there's a first time for everything, and sometimes the first time's a little unnerving. But yeah, we went on to do a couple of other maneuvers as well. But yeah, I had a pretty good grip on that dash. When we're flying a bank like that, you do feel like you're going to slide off the wings and fall out. One of the reasons I don't mind helicopter flights probably a little bit more, because you tend to be hanging under the rotors, and it's 1G for most of what you're doing. You don't tend to feel like you're going to fall out. But yeah, we'll come up to another bit in a moment here. We're just enjoying some of the views up here. Now, Snoopy is very good with his hand signals, so he's talking to me over the intercom here, which sadly I wasn't able to interlink with the recording at this point. This is really before we got that camera system really interlinked with the intercom. So he's going to explain here the maneuver he's about to do. So we're going to do a rolling bank up, over, and then in through the clouds, and roll over, and hopefully pop out the bottom of the clouds nice and level. So we'll just wait for him to sort of get in position here. At this point I think he was coming down to build a bit of airspeed, and then going to pull a hard bank up, which I think that was about probably 2.5, 3 Gs, nothing crazy there. And then I think we went about 0 G here. We stuck our nose through the clouds, punched through and come out the bottom. And I believe that's some sort of fighter maneuver, but done much more gently than you would do it in combat. So, probably not the most amazing aerobatics, but still, it's when you're in it, it's a different thing to watching it on screen. And it's one of these things on my bucket list I got to tick off well before I had a bucket list. But you never know. I might. I still know. I've seen this actual aircraft in different hands with the new paint job floating around the same airfield. So you never know. I might get another shot at it. Anyway, we're coming back to RAF Pilot here, and we're just lining up for a runway for a landing. I thought it was fairly fitting that the end of this video would be coming into land. And it would be nice if there was some audio on this, but the cameras at the time, it was pretty hard. Oh, actually, you know, I tell a lie, he did do a bit of radio chatter on this. It was interlinked to the intercom, and that had Vox microphones on it. So yeah, pretty much the only time you let the throttle drop on this is when you're landing. The rest of the time you fix the throttle and use variable blade pitch.
November, Mike, February 5034, you right if we roll on 05?
November Mike 8 firm, we'll be backtracking runway 09.
Alright, that's us taking off the runway and onto the taxiway. So that pretty well brings this video to an end. I hope it was interesting, and hope you don't mind the B-roll stuff. By all means, make mention of it in the comments and let me know what you think. I might do more of this.